れは昔々のお話です。あるところにお父様とお母様を亡くし、深い悲しみに暮れる幼いお姫様がいました。そんなお姫様の前に白馬に乗った旅の王子様が現れます。凛々しい姿、優しい微笑み。はいつも私の胸に。それはいいとして、お姫様は王子様に憧れるあまり、自分も王子様になる決意をしてしまったのです。でもいいの？本当にそれで。
And so this panel is about postmodernism in anime, and as I mentioned, because of technical difficulties, I am unable to access my notes while playing the panel, so this will be fun. But I've done it before, so I think it should be okay. How many of you were at this panel last year? Good. You won't be able to see how much of it is repeated. Basically, this is a kind of a 101 panel. So if you have a degree in this stuff, if you've been studying this stuff, this is going to seem very basic to you. Hopefully, if you haven't, this will be new and interesting. But basically, I'm going to start the panel by going through an attempt to define a thing which cannot be defined, postmodernism, and then I'm going to talk about like some techniques that anime tends to employ. And throughout, I'll be giving some examples from shows, but then the back half of the panel is going to be specific shows and talking about what they specifically are doing. And I just gave you an indication of what shows I will be talking about. So let's dive straight in with a very basic question. What is postmodernism? And the best answer ever to this question...
I don't get all this eyeball stuff. What are they supposed to represent? Eyeballs? It's Pomo. Postmodern. Yeah, all right. Weird for the sake of weird. Oh.
Remember when The Simpsons was good? If you do, you're as old as I am. To explain postmodernism, we have to go back to modernism, which whatever moron thought it was a good idea to name an art music movement modernism, meaning that no one can ever talk about modern art ever again because, hey, guess what, guys? Time didn't stop. It is no longer 1912. What was modern then is not modern now. So we're stuck with names like postmodernism. Eventually, somewhere in the next 10 to 50 years, we're going to get postmodernism. Then somebody's going to, have to be like transmodernism, or who even knows. One of the roots of modernism is this idea of the signifier-signified distinction, which is why I have this symbol up. What does this mean?
Stop.
Why?
Because that's what the stop sign looks like.
Because that's what a stop sign looks like. A red octagon means stop. Across most of the world, a red octagon, especially with a white outline, means stop. The question is why? And that's where we get into the signifier-signified distinctions. The signifier and the signified are the two halves that together make a symbol. The signifier is the image or the idea that does the communicating. In this case, it's the red octagon, is the signifier. The signified is the concept in the mind that it calls to. In computer science terms, it's a pointer and an address in your human memory. The signifier-signified distinction is about the fact that there is no necessary connection between the two. There is no stopness within a red octagon. Red octagons mean stop because when you were a kid, every time your parents saw a red octagon, they stopped the car. Hopefully every time. Bad things happened the time they didn't. They mean stop because everybody agrees they mean stop. This is the concept of constructivism, or constructionism. The idea that everything, all of our symbols, all of our ideas, the way we approach the world are things we built. Now, Modern art, modern meaning early 20th century, does something very specific with that distinction. So on the left, we have an example of pre-modern art. On the right, modern art. This is Liberty Leading the People, which is a great painting. And it's full of familiar signifiers.
The Coldplay album.
I'm sorry?
The Coldplay album.
Quite possibly. But you've got a flag, which is a signifier for a country. We immediately know this has something to do with France because we recognize the French flag. You have the symbol of a woman holding one arm aloft, leading people, which is a familiar symbol. She's holding one arm aloft and she's got something held in the other. We know this symbol. We know what it is. We've got a pretty famous statue using the same symbol. We've got a title at the bottom that gives more indications. You've got images of people, and people, you've got a child, you've got someone who's richly dressed, someone who's not richly dressed. You've got piles of bodies, weapons. These are all signifiers of things that let you have some idea of what's going on, some concept of what this is about, because they're familiar signifiers that connect to signifieds you already know about. Then on the right, you've got a Pollock painting, which does not have any familiar signifiers. It's denying you the familiar signifiers that you can use to construct a meaning. It's saying, nope, you are on your own. I'm not giving you any guide rails.
But it uses color,
It does use color.
which has archetypal meanings, yeah?
Yes, but you'll note that it uses very unsaturated color, all kind of blurred together. There's not specific regions of specific colors. So it's very hard to latch on to the color as a source of meaning. That's going to be your main source when you actually sit down to interpret it, but it's certainly not giving you clear indicators of whether, for example, the blue, kind of grayish blues are, a calm ocean or a stormy sky. Now, postmodern art does something a little different with these guide rails. I love Magritte. If you don't know, the French is, this is not a pipe. And this is a painting called The Treachery of Images. Because, of course, this is not a pipe. It's a painting of a pipe. More accurately, it is a TV projecting an image of a pipe that has been digitally stored after having been scanned off of a painting of a pipe. What it's doing is saying, okay, here's your safe, comfortable, familiar guide rails. By the way, you're using guide rails. Notice them. Don't passively accept them. Notice them. Think about them. Be aware of them. Now, that's one way of looking at what postmodern art does. There's lots of other ways to define it. The best way really is to just kind of look at examples and techniques. One of those techniques is decontextualization, recontextualization, where you take something familiar and put it in a new context. Or you could take familiar elements from one kind of work and put them in a different kind of work, by, for example, crossing over genres. You can have a character directly interact with the medium, which we normally can safely ignore. You can even have characters talk to the audience. This is all ways of calling that attention. Or you can just take the things that make the story safe and strip them away. Those are all options and all things we're going to be talking about as we go along. So, first technique I'm going to talk about is metatextuality. Metatextuality is a fairly broad term for relating different levels of text. And what I mean by that is, for example, there's a distinction in film between diegetic sound and extradiegetic sound. Diegetic sound would be, for example, a character playing an instrument, or a character's footsteps, or that kind of thing. It's sound that is part of the story. Extradiegetic sound is stuff like the background music. It's sound that is available to the audience, affects the way the story is perceived, but is not actually a part of the story. Metatextuality is the opening of Blazing Saddles, where we start out with great, this great like Western kind of music, and then the shot pans over and we see the orchestra playing it. It's crossing between levels. The simplest, most familiar example is what's called breaking the fourth wall. You've got the actors up on stage, you've got the audience, and there's three walls defining the stage, and then the invisible fourth wall that prevents the characters from noticing that there's an audience. Step through that, break it, automatically you're engaged in metatextual shenanigans. But there are other ways to do it too. Really, anything that crosses between the diegetic and the extra-diegetic, between stuff that's within the story and stuff that's not, is a form of that. One of my favorite examples is in the first episode of Madoka Magica, when there's a sudden art style shift from normal anime stuff to freaky papercraft. And the characters are deeply upset by this and want to know what is going on, because they've just seen the art style change. Which, let's face it, if the art style of the world changed, that would be pretty scary. I'm going to move on because I don't remember whether I had anything else to talk about here. Like I said, I'm running without notes. So let's talk about what I was already talking a little bit about, decontextualization. We are familiar to things belonging in certain contexts. For example, as a general rule, you are not going to find the computer hacker style character in an epic fantasy, because that's not a character that really fits. Yet, the Discworld books have Ponder Stibbons, who is exactly that. He is a modern-day nerd in a high fantasy setting. The series The Slayers, which I have a panel on about tomorrow, has a lot of fun with putting things into a fantasy setting that do not belong in a fantasy setting, like Yakuza, or, that's the first example that comes to mind. There's a bunch of others, people walking around in Hawaiian shirts and sunglasses. And what this does is it has a jarring effect. When we see something that we're used to seeing in one context and we instead see it in another, it's surprising. And surprise is a very useful emotion because it leads so easily into so many different other emotions. Surprise can be funny. Surprise can be scary. Surprise can force you to think. Or it can do all of them at once. So when we strip, for example, the invisible protection field that surrounds all magical girls and prevents them from being, horribly murdered by the monsters they fight, strip that away and show a magical girl's head getting bitten off, that's going to have an impact on your audience. Or strip away from your teen robot piloting heroes the magical anti-PTSD field that protects them from being horribly traumatized, and that's going to have an effect on your audience. Neon Genesis Evangelion does a great job of this kind of stuff. Or you can just do more basic things. Cowboy Bebop is great because it's taking so many things and pulling them out of their context. It's taking elements of spy thrillers and noir and like Jackie Chan style martial arts movies and like westerns and sticking them all into effectively a fairly hard for anime science fiction setting. And in so doing, it takes what is honestly, by the late 1990s, a really boring setting. Because let's face it, space opera is pretty played out. But by injecting all this other stuff from other things, you get this really fun, exciting series that allows us to take a new take on it, do new things with it. Heck, speaking of space opera, the original Star Wars, basically what it did was a standard, by-the-numbers, rote, cliche, unoriginal fantasy movie only instead of wizards, you have Jedi, and instead of castles, you have a space fortress, and instead of wisecracking peasants, you have wisecracking robots. And it revitalized an entire genre. Space opera was on the way out when Star Wars came in, and it kicked it back up. All right. Let's talk about narrative collapse. Now, there are two competing definitions for narrative collapse because it's a relatively recently coined term. One, which is not what I'm talking about, is this idea that our culture is losing the ability to tell stories because of short attention spans. A, I don't think that's true. And B, that's not the definition I'm going to be using. The definition I'm going to be using comes from a guy named Phil Sandifer, who just completed a massive, massive project to analyze the entirety of Doctor Who. And so for his next take, he's going to be doing British comics. Like, all of British comics. And he coined this concept. A narrative collapse is a new kind of conflict. We're used to conflicts in stories being some variation on either the characters have a goal and something is preventing them from reaching it, or something is threatening to harm the characters or someone. And conflict arises from this. In a narrative collapse, it instead relies on the audience's ability to recognize what kind of story is being told and then threaten the story. The goal, in a normal conflict, the question is, how will they get out of this? How will they get to their goals? For a narrative collapse, the question is, how can there still be a story? Now, here is a fairly well-known anime example, though there are plenty of others. Now, that's actually a very unusual example of a very unusual example of a narrative collapse, because the answer to the question, how can there still be a story, is there isn't one, go home. Which is very different from the series. The series actually resolves its narrative collapse, but I'll get into that when I get to talking about the series, which I will be. Normally what happens in a narrative collapse is the story either is restored or replaced by a new kind of story, and we move on. An example of a relatively small one, which I keep going back to because I just wrote a book about it, is in Madoka. Episode 3 is a narrative collapse. We've been telling one kind of magical girl show, and now we can't tell that kind of magical girl show anymore. So, congratulations, audience, you're getting a new kind of story. Often, however, there's a heavy price. Character will be killed, or something will be lost, some massive change to the story. Another good example of a narrative collapse, though it's not a particularly postmodern work, is Gurren Lagann. The death of Kamina brings the whole show to a screeching halt for like 3 episodes, while they work through how the heck we can still make another, 15 episodes of this show.
Is Princess Tutu an example of narrative collapse?
God, yes. I will get to Princess Tutu. So, I distinguish between things I think are good and things I like. However, my 5 favorite anime and the 5 anime I think are the best are slightly different lists. It's actually the same 5 anime, just in a different order. Princess Tutu is my favorite anime ever. I love Princess Tutu, and I would love to do a panel about it if I thought more than 3 people would show up.
I love Princess Tutu.
I might do it at some point, because, God, it's so good. It's so much fun. I'll get to talking about Princess Tutu
They're
more.
telling one story, and then they completely forget about that story, and start telling a totally different thing, where you're basically trying to destroy the thing that was originally made you into a magical girl.
Yes, and yeah, it's a great example of a narrative collapse. Yeah. So those are all over the place in anime. It's actually, Basically, over the last 20 years, the narrative collapse has become the standard format for the season-ending cliffhanger in Western shows. And it's become the standard format for like the mid-series disaster in anime, which more or less serves the same function. So let's move on to whatever is next. All right. So I talked about this briefly, but why would you do any of this? And the most basic reason is that jarring feeling, that disorientation which can be exploited for humor, for horror, to make people think. Sometimes more than one of those at once. But, calling attention to the guide rails, causing people to think about how stories work, can have some very powerful effect. And some anime deliberately do it for that purpose. One of the most useful ways you can do it is calling people's attention to the stories that shape their own lives, the social constructs that surround them and shape our world, because our understanding of the world is built out of symbols. It's built out of ideas and out of concepts which ultimately are our own creations, but we often treat reality as if it has 3 layers. There's the layer of the material, which, solid and real, and does what it does, and we study it scientifically and so on. And then the layer of social reality, of nations and money and countries and gender and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the made up stuff, like stories. But the truth is there's only 2 layers. There's this and there's stuff we made up. And by calling attention to the way stories are constructed, you can use those same techniques to call attention to the way our lives are constructed. I showed the stop sign as an example. It's true of money, too. Why is a $5 bill worth more than a $1 bill? Because we say so. If we could change our minds, there would be consequences to changing our minds, perhaps not very pretty ones, but we could change our minds and decide that $1 bills are actually worth more. So, here's an example of a series that really, really wants you to think about the stories that are shaping your life, and in particular about the concept of gender. Some other things as well, but in particular, very much, this series wants you to think about the way gender is structured in anime, and by extension, in life. Because Utena is very, very insistent that she is a girl and a prince. And that these 2 things do not contradict in the slightest. Because why should they have to? If anyone's ever read the Enchanted Forest Chronicles by Patricia Reed, I love those books. Loved them as a kid. And they have the King of the Dragons as a woman. Because king is a specific job that has specific duties. Queen is a completely different job. It has completely different duties. And she's the best available person to do the king's job, so she's the king. Makes sense? It's just not how we do things. All right. Let's talk about some specific shows now. How are we doing for time? I'm probably going too fast.
30 minutes, probably.
Okay, actually, yeah, I'm exactly on time, so good. Let's dive into some specific shows. This isn't really in any order. This is just the order I felt like talking about things. So when you say postmodernism in anime, this is usually the first thing that people mention. With very good reason. Evangelion has accumulated a lot of hate over the years because it's got a lot of hype. But the truth is, it does deserve the level of study it's received. This is a very deep and very complex show. In particular, I will defend the last 2 episodes to my dying day. They are brilliant. Because what is happening in the last 2 episodes is a narrative collapse. Now, it's a narrative collapse that is being imposed from outside. Specifically, Gainax sucks at budgeting. That's also why the last episode of Gunbuster is in black and white. And the massive final battle is a series of still shots. They really did not develop the knack of actually having enough money to pay for the finale until well after Evangelion. However, it's also a narrative collapse that's provoked from within. Specifically, through this whole thing, we've been exploring what happens to a super robot show if your teen robot piloting heroes don't have invincible psyches, if in fact they suffer the emotional trauma of being a child who is the only defense of the entire Earth against freaking kaiju. That's rough on a kid. You know, I'm pretty messed up because my family fought a lot. I didn't have to deal with kaiju. And then you pile on top of that, well, what would it really be like to have the kind of dad who would abandon his kid to go off and invent the giant robots? That would actually be a pretty terrible dad, wouldn't it? You know, and so on and so forth. Like, the whole idea is to take it's this decontextualization. And the result of this building up over time is that eventually our hero collapses into a puddle of goo. Shinji cannot do anything by the end of the series. Which reminds me, I actually want to take an informal poll. All right, how many people hate Shinji? Raise your hands. Or really dislike him or look down on him? Wow, it's very few of you. Out of curiosity, keep your hands up. Now, put your hand down unless you watch the series dubbed. If you watched it subbed, put your hand down. If you watched it dubbed, keep it up. Okay, theory mostly disproven. There's a theory floating around at the moment that the reason people hate Shinji is because in the Japanese he was voiced by a woman and in the American he was voiced by a man.
What?
And he doesn't act masculine.
Oh.
I don't think that's why.
Yeah,
So I'm happy to be...
both subbed and dubbed, and it's not different enough that it would make you hate the character.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't hate him in the sub.
Now, I wouldn't want to be friends with Shinji, but he works, in my opinion, he's a great character.
Oh yeah.
Again, I distinguish between things I like and things that are good. Shinji has completely collapsed and can no longer even get in the robot and fight. How do you keep telling a super robot story when you've reduced your main character to this? And so the story collapses around him. We start breaking the fourth wall. We start, doing weird psychological trips. The whole thing just falls apart. But it does manage to resolve itself by the end. It finds a way to get back on path by helping Shinji realize that his view of the world is something that was built for him by others, and he has the power to change that view by changing how he looks at it, by constructing his own way of looking at things and accepting that his perspective is as valid as anybody else's. And the result is we've restored the show, we can continue on, we can keep doing things. The price is we never get to actually show any of the rest. At least until the end of Evangelion, which goes in a very different direction with it, because thus far the pattern is every time there's a new version of Evangelion, it starts out looking like it's going to be happier and then gets even worse. Moving on from Evangelion. Now this is my pick for the actual best anime. Utena is amazing. Utena is brilliant. Anyone here not seen Utena? Oh my god, that makes me so sad. You need to see this series. I am not kidding when I call this the best anime ever. So, since so many of you haven't seen it, I'll really briefly summarize. Utena wants to be... Basically, Utena was rescued by a prince when she was a little girl. She therefore decides that when she grows up, she wants to be a prince too, and rescue princesses. She comes to this school where there's this weird dueling club, and whoever is the current champion of the dueling club gets to make Anthe, the other girl, do whatever they want. And she's engaged to them. Everything I just said is absolutely, completely true, and also absolutely a lie. None of that happened, except that it did. Except that it didn't. These people may or may not exist. They may or may not be alive. Actually, no, none of them exist because it's a story. That's the point. And the one thing it absolutely denies, I was talking about that three-layered realities before. By the end of this series, it has pointed those out to you by pointing out that stories don't have to be built that way. There is absolutely no reason that a physical object in a story has to be real just because in real life it is. There's absolutely no reason that what characters experience while awake has to be realer than what they dream just because in real life it is. Because they're all fictional characters anyway. None of it's real. All of it's equally made up, so all of it's equally real. So maybe if a person is forgotten, the work they did disappears. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you can create something just by changing memories. It is a brilliant series. If you're a Monica fan in particular, I strongly recommend watching this because witches. It delves heavily into the concept of the witch and kind of sets up this dynamic of there's the princess and there's the witch, and you have to be one or the other. And then basically, why? Why should you have to be one or the other? Why can't you be both? Why can't you be neither?
Question. Are you aware of the Yorikuma one that he's doing now, that they're showing now?
Yes, I am aware of it. I really, really want to watch it. I just haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I really, really want to because I see a person shaking their head, but it's by Ikuhara. The title translates to Lesbian Bear Storm. Those are the only two things I know about it, and that's all I need to know to watch it.
What is it? Is it a redo of?
No, it's just the same director.
Okay. All I'm going to say about it is that it draws a ton of visual parallels to Utena.
Ooh.
Some of the visual cues that you'll see in Utena, and you watch in Yurikuma, you're going to say, I know what that's supposed to be. So that was the first thing that really caught my mind when I started watching it.
Also, a bit of fun alternate history. Utena started development process as a Sailor Moon movie. Specifically, oh god, I'm blanking. The two that are lesbians. Yeah, that's who these characters started as. You can actually find, if you look through interviews with Ikuhara, you can find a summary of what the plot was going to be of that movie. But it was rejected because they decided that making a Sailor Moon movie that didn't have Sailor Moon in it was a bad idea.
Is that when they brought in Chiho Saito?
I'm sorry?
Is that when they brought in Chiho Saito? The author.
Yeah, they brought her in after they decided to make this its own thing.
Was this an original series or was it a manga first?
This was originally conceived as an anime. But because of development times, the manga started being released before the anime started. But it's Saito, is it Saito is her name? Chiho Saito. And Ikuhara developed the anime together. Then Saito went off on her own to make a manga, and Ikuhara went off on his own to make the movie. So the anime is my favorite one because the lesbianism is actually a really important part of the theme, and the manga kind of cuts it out because Saito. Whereas the movie is way too literal for my tastes. Everything weird in that movie is just a blatant version of something that was a lot more complex and subtle in the show. In particular, the car thing. I don't want to explain that because so many people haven't seen Utena and I don't want to spoil it. But the car thing.
Starts in 20 minutes.
Let's change gears to something more fun. How many people have seen Excel Saga? Goodly number of you, more than I expected actually. This is a show from early 2000s.
Like 99.
Yeah, 99, 2000, right around there. Height of the anime boom, which is probably the only reason it came out in the US. This is definitely the kind of show that either before or after that period would have been left in Japan. Because it's ridiculous. Every episode opens with the author of the Excel Saga manga authorizing the makers of the anime to change genres. And it then does a different genre. It still manages by the latter half to develop something resembling a coherent plot. The Like, most of the series is really good. The last episode is terrible. The last episode is too much. They deliberately decided to go for too much in every possible direction. It is slightly too long to air as a half-hour episode of Japanese television. By like 30 seconds. It is completely full of ridiculous gore, nudity, sexual situations, like all this, and it's just deliberately trying to be too much of everything. Plus, the plot is already wrapped up in the previous episode. So don't bother with the last episode, but there's so much great stuff here. Making fun of anime and anime genres. There's a Sentai team who are hilarious. In the first episode, Excel works for this like evil organization that's trying to take over the world, and she's assigned to kill one of the people who is corrupting the youth of Japan, namely the author of the Excel Saga manga. That was that image I showed with the sword and the guy cowering on the ground. Yeah, that's the author of the manga about to be killed. She succeeds, which causes the universe to be destroyed and has to be reset. Oh, yeah, by the way, the universe is a character in this. She's the great will of the macrocosm. She gets the primary romantic arc.
With Pedro, right?
With Pedro, yes. Pedro is a construction worker. He and her have, like, a thing. He gets a really epic storyline, by the way.
Have you ever seen Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei? Would you say that's sort of a similar, like...
I have only seen, like, half of the first episode, but yes. Yes, it is. Definitely one I want to watch more of. Especially because every time I do this panel, somebody brings it up. Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about how you can use it for horror, or you can use it to make people think, or you can use it for comedy. This is going whole hog into using this stuff for comedy. It is using this kind of calling your attention to the kinds of guideposts that anime uses to point out that they're ridiculous and make you laugh at them. There is an alien invasion in, like, the second episode, and the aliens are all super cute, and so nobody can fight back. Except Excel, because she doesn't care about cuteness, so she just goes slaughtering.
Do you think Cromartie High also fits?
Yes. Yes, it does. Another great series. Yes.
What was that one?
Cromartie High. Oh god, yeah, watch that. Or read it, or consume that in some form. It's good stuff. Cromartie. And yes, Freddie Mercury goes to their high school. Why does Freddie Mercury go to their high school? Because... Alright. Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. A pretty okay anime based on a really great light novel series. I really heavily recommend the light novels. The only exception I would say is that actually the broadcast order of the first season is way better way to tell the story. But my actual favorite example of the stuff this series does is really hard to find nowadays. Because you have to find fan subs of the original broadcast that keep in the next episode previews. Because those were genius and they are not in any later broadcast or the DVDs. The next episode, see, what they did was they aired the series deliberately out of order when they first aired the first season. The first storyline is broken up and episodes that come later in the series are stuck in the middle. So you have no idea what's going on. What would happen in the next episode previews is the two main characters, Kyon and Haruhi, would argue about which episode was next. One, I'm trying to remember, Kyon, who's the down-to-earth basic guy, would try to give a next episode preview for the next episode in production order. While Haruhi, who's the girl in the middle and kind of over the top and ridiculous, would give the next, also has supernatural powers, though she doesn't know that, that's kind of the plot, would give the next episode in broadcast order. How many people have seen or read this or are generally familiar with it? Yeah, this was huge, like 7-8 years ago. Sorry?
like 8 years ago now.
Yeah, it's pretty old, but it was huge. Like, it was the big anime of 2007.
Would it have gotten so popular if they had put all the episodes in order?
No.
Because I heard that if you watch them all in order, it's not really a good series. But it's like so famous, everybody dresses up as it, and I was like,
Yeah.
it's weird. Like, I'm not sure if I should get into it or not.
Because what happens is if you watch them in production order, you get this 6-episode arc that's moderately interesting. And then you get a bunch of one-shot stories that follow a really predictable formula. If you watch it in broadcast order, you have no idea what's going on in those strictly formula episodes, and so they just serve to heighten the mystery that the main arc is going to reveal. And which I will now spoil for you. Basically, the idea here is that Haruhi, for whatever reason, 3 years ago gained the power to reshape reality at will. This may be because she's God, this may be for some other reason, but she can, at will, completely rewrite the entire universe to her whims. She has no idea she can do this. Kyon is the only apparently normal person in the group. The other 3 characters are a psychic from a cult that worships Haruhi as God and is trying to prevent her from discovering her powers because they fear that if she learns she can do this, she will completely destroy the universe. A time traveler from the future who is investigating why they can't travel back to before the moment when Haruhi gained her powers and is also trying to prevent Haruhi from discovering she has her powers because they're worried that if she started using them deliberately, she would destroy the universe. And an alien who is here to investigate the massive surge of energy they picked up at the moment when Haruhi got her powers, and is also trying to stop Haruhi from discovering she has her powers, because if she did, etc. Haruhi, meanwhile, thinks the world is really boring and would love if something interesting happened, like finding out if that one of her classmates was a psychic or a time traveler or an alien. So she organized a club to investigate paranormal phenomena, and entirely by chance, the people she recruited into it are these characters. And by recruited, I mean kidnapped. So the formula I mentioned is Haruhi starts noticing that events around her vaguely resemble a particular genre of anime or popular literature. And the other characters desperately try to prevent her from discovering that she's reshaping reality to match her expectations. In other words, it's Haruhi starts a recognizable story and the other characters try to prevent it from happening. One arc is completely a Phoenix Wright parody, and it's great. It's like a 2-parter that even has like the poses. But that's basically the show, is Haruhi is trying to turn the universe into an anime, and the other characters are trying to prevent her. It's really fun. The light novels are really quite good. The movie is also excellent. However, the studio which made it really likes trolling the audience. Which is why we got Endless 8. Which in the light novels is a single short story that's like the Groundhog's Day kind of thing. In the series, it's 8 episodes, the first 7 of which are identical. Except that they reanimated them and re-recorded the lines for all of them. But they are absolutely identical.
Endless 8 was genius, you know it.
Yes, but it's one of those things that's brilliant in concept, but you do not want to actually experience as a show you like that's finally airing new episodes. Which, oh, by the way, there was no announcement of season 2. They just randomly started dropping episodes of it into the reruns of season 1. And then 8 weeks of everyone being like, well, they can't possibly. Like, this time they have to break out of the time loop, right? Right?
That's how they keep people watching the show, to heighten that mystery.
Yeah. Moving on. Wow, I'm actually nearly out of time. I'm going to have to go really fast. That sucks, because Princess Tutu is amazing. Princess Tutu starts out as basically the Nutcracker is a Magical Girl story. It is the most badass anime about a ballet dancing duck ever made. And it's wonderful. It's awesome. It's about a duck who becomes a girl who becomes a magical girl. And every episode follows the plot of a specific ballet that provides most of the music for that episode, while also being an episode within an ongoing and evolving story. It's a neat trick. And halfway through, they realize that they have all been enslaved by an author who is trying to write a tragedy, and if they want to avoid that, they're going to have to find a way to defeat him and tell a different story. Really, really good stuff. I highly recommend it. There is also, like, the thing that put it over the top and was like, this is now my favorite thing ever. A few months ago, I was reading the comments on a blog that was following this. And it was an episode where Fakir, the dark-haired guy in the lower right, was trying to learn more about this ability of authors to reshape reality around them. And he goes to the library and he discovers that there's a bunch of books that have had pages torn out of them. Like, every book he needs has had pages torn out of it. And we see a shot of one of the books. And there's a page with a few fragments of German writing on it. One of the commenters Googled that writing. Do you know what that page was? It was the Amazon.de description of the book The Never-Ending Story. Which, by the way, another brilliant and spectacularly postmodern book. And while the first movie is pretty good, the book is like 1,000,000 times better. It is so good. I read it when I was 8, and I have been rereading it ever since.
Okay.
Yeah, I've already given enough examples from this, and we're running low on time. Bakemonogatari, which I still actually need to finish. I'm 3 episodes from the end. This is an absolutely brilliant show that does all kinds of bizarre things to make you think about anime and the way anime is constructed and anime protagonists, because what it basically is a standard issue harem visual novel type thing that is pointing out to you what a complete loser and asshole the main character of any of those things necessarily has to be. And by extension, questions you for playing/watching this kind of thing. Also does some really neat stuff with Japanese mythology, where all of the characters are these folkloric monsters, except that none of those monsters exist. They're, as near as I can tell, all made up for the show. But they really sound like real folklore.
What was the name of this again?
Bakemonogatari.
Say it so fast.
Bakemonogatari.
It's actually a pun.
Yeah, I think the English translation is Monstory,
but it's,
which is essentially the same pun.
But Japanese, it's kind of like portmanteaued. Bakemono.
Bakemono is one of the words for monster,
Yeah.
and monogatari is one of the words for story.
Yeah.
So Monstory is the usual English translation. I could have put anything by Satoshi Kon on here, but I chose Paranoia Agent, because I love Paranoia Agent. I love everything by Satoshi Kon. But, oh my god, Paranoia Agent. Satoshi Kon, as near as I can tell, hated anime fans. And pop culture, and basically everything. Shonen Bat, who is presented initially as the villain for this, is a tulpa. A tulpa is a being that is called into existence by the dreams of humans. The most well-known examples in our culture are Freddy Krueger and Slenderman. The idea is this is a story about a monster that itself is a story. It's not real, but because all the characters around it aren't real either, it can still murder them. Or, in the case of Shonen Bat, skate up to them and hit them over the head with a baseball bat. It's also got a great narrative collapse at the ending, as all of reality becomes this, cardboard cutout, it's like something you'd see at Universal Studios kind of thing. Really great stuff. I wish I had more time to talk about everything Satoshi Kon has ever done and how incredibly postmodern is it. Holy God, Paprika.
Blue Gender's pretty.
Yeah, and Tokyo Godfathers is pretty actually straightforward. But I've got very little time left. And I wanted to talk about something else. Now, I've talked about like decontextualization, recontextualization, calling attention to the guidelines, taking things out of one context, putting them in another. There's an argument to be made that the two like inherently postmodern art forms are the pastiche and the collage, because they both function by taking elements from other works and sticking them together to make something new. Anime fans like to do that too. We like to take elements from one or more anime and stick them onto something completely unrelated to string them together into something new. For example, this instance of what we like to call the AMV, another inherently postmodern art form. And by the way, this is the Princess Tutu AMV. This is seriously what the show is. This gets it perfectly. Because it's ballet, but damn. If I accomplish nothing else in this panel, I want more people to watch Princess Tutu. And this is actually the video that got me to watch it. So, was it this con or Otakon where this won the AMV contest?
This one.
Whichever one it was, that was what got me to watch it. You thought I was kidding about the ballet dancing duck. All right, that's the panel. If you're interested in learning more, I've got some lovely book recommendations. In particular, that second one there is a great book about Madoka Magica. I'm afraid we're completely out of time, so I can't take questions. But I will be around. Tonight I will be doing Breaking the World's Shell, Anime Apocalypse and Revolution at 8:30 in room 202. Tomorrow I'm doing Tengen Toppa Evangelion Aim for the Top at 10 a.m. in 206. and Reading Too Much into the Slayers at 9 p.m. in the Public Garden. And Sunday, for change of pace.
Public Garden is here.
Yeah, oh, sorry, right, Public Garden is next door.
Well, no, well.
Yeah, this is the
This
fence.
is the fence. Public Garden is next.
And then on Sunday at 1 o'clock, I'm doing Big Eyes Small Mouth in 208. Thank you all, you're a great audience. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you around.